by giving our praises to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem, Rock Kadesh, double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone that taught me this truth. This is Genesis 47, and I'm going to start at the 13th verse. And there was no bread in all the land, for the famine was very sore, so that the land of Egypt and all the land of Canaan fainted by reason of the famine. And Joseph gathered up all the money that was found in the land of Egypt and in the land of Canaan for the corn which they brought, and Joseph brought the money into Pharaoh's house. And when the money faileth in the land of Egypt and in the land of Canaan, all the Egyptians came unto Joseph and said, Give us bread, for why should we die and perish, for the money faileth.
Of the dollar's impending doom.
I don't want to be overly dramatic, but I think I will use the word doomed in the long term.
The US dollar is the most powerful currency that exists today. It's accepted and traded almost everywhere in the world and has shown strong resilience through numerous financial shocks and mounting fiscal debt.
The US dollar for the last couple of decades has been the preeminent global currency in virtually every dimension you can think of.
It allows us to have a great demand for our currency and for our bonds. So it often allows us to live a bit beyond our means, so we can borrow easily and at low interest rates in the world to finance economic growth.
But some experts worry that the dollar's dominance may be under threat.
I tend to think that nothing could ever dislodge the dollar from this preeminent status as the world's currency. That view is overblown and ultimately will be challenged.
So what poses a threat to the dollar's status as the world's reserve currency? And just how long can its dominance last? America's growing account deficit is one of the biggest threats to the dollar.
The US dollar ought to be under threat. After all, the US government has been running massive deficits for a long time, which should in principle be reflected in high inflation, which in turn should reduce the dollar's value and the dollar's role as an international currency.
This is most evident in America's current account deficit, which means the value of imported goods and services exceeds the value of exported goods and services.
The current account balance, as we call it, has been in deficit every single year since the early 1980s. In some years it's modest, and some years it's big, and right now it's big in the U.S.
During the fourth quarter of 2021, the U.S. current account deficit hit $217.9 billion, amounting to 3.6% of America's GDP. Experts like Stephen Roach believe that this growing deficit is directly related to a low national saving rate.
And when countries do not save, which is the case in the United States, we end up borrowing surplus saving from abroad to square the circle. We can do that because we have this almighty dollar, the world's great reserve currency. And so we have been borrowing massive amounts of foreign savings from abroad, and it provides a relatively painless way of financing our current account deficit until something happens that changes the minds of foreign nations who want to lend us their surplus capital, their surplus saving. And, I think there's a risk of that down the road as our international balance of payments deficit continues to expand.
The US dollar has been the world's reserve currency since most countries abandoned the gold standard.
America went off the gold standard and wrote an ounce of gold split up into 20 pieces, each called $1.
That means a substantial amount is held by central banks and major financial institutions to use for international transactions.
Okay, so America abandoned the gold standard. Alright, this is Ecclesiastes chapter 10, verse 8. Because of unrighteous dealings and injuries and riches gotten by deceit, the kingdom is transferred from one people to another. Alright, so when they took the money from being bagged by silver to being bagged by, they call it the petrodollar, but it's really bagged by absolutely nothing. That was an unrighteous act, right? So now you give people worthless paper for their goods and services, and the other nations are starting to figure that out, and that means trouble for America.
But its share has been steadily dropping. During the fourth quarter of 2020, dollar share in the global foreign exchange reserve dropped to its lowest share in over 25 years. The rise in alternative currencies may be to blame.
It has come down, partly because of the introduction of the euro. The euro has become held to a greater extent over the years.
Renminbi started playing a role as a reserve currency just a few years ago, and it accounts for a relatively modest share, less than 3% of global foreign exchange reserves, but it's been chipping away very modestly at the dollar's role. Plus, there are other reserve currencies, including the Japanese yen, the British pound sterling, but even some of the smaller reserve currencies, such as the Canadian dollar and the Australian dollar, that have all gained marginally in terms of their shares.
While the recent geopolitical crisis has caused investors to flock to the dollar, strengthening its position, whether that safety will last is another question.
The fact that we may have overlooked some alternatives, whether it's the euro, the renminbi, or, dare I say, cryptocurrencies, the case for a weaker dollar is one that I think we will.
It's a cryptocurrency, and the new thing is now they trying to centralize the cryptocurrency. Alright, trying to make it onto one thing, which is going to lead to that MOB. Alright, this is Revelations chapter 13, verse 16. And he causes all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their forehead, and that no man may buy or sell, save he that have the mark, or the number of the beast, or the number of his name. And it's kind of funny that Bitcoin got that B on it. Alright, gets to put you in the mind frame of thinking beast coin. Alright.
Then addressing it.
Why does the value of the dollar decrease and increase?
When the dollar softens, it usually isn't a cause for concern. In fact, it could even be beneficial for the U.S. economy.
Sometimes if the economy is faltering, having a weaker currency can provide a boost to those exports by making them more competitive in the global market. So a weaker dollar at times could certainly be a benefit. The flip side is too weak a dollar means that you tend to get high inflation, and that can be discouraging to foreign investment.
If the dollar becomes too weak, it has the potential to have a catastrophic impact on the American economy.
It would make imports a lot more expensive, and that would certainly drive up inflation. And if that came at a time when inflation was already rising, as is the case right now, that would certainly put a lot of pressure on the U.S. economy. If foreign investors started dumping U.S. government bonds.
Lucky for me, there's some great golf here in the Carolinas. Whether you golf or not, Geico could help you score some great savings on car insurance. Whoa! Oh, hole in one.
Geico. See all the ways you could save.
That would certainly put a lot of pressure on the U.S. economy. If foreign investors started dumping U.S. government bonds and other types, that would certainly drive up interest rates, which would in turn would make them basically all the rates on borrowing by U.S. consumers and companies much more expensive, which might substantially affect both consumption and investment and bring down economic growth.
In response, the equity and commodity market would most likely take a hit as well.
Most commodities are priced in dollars, and if the dollar were to go down, that would certainly have a significant impact on commodity prices around the world.
A severely weakened dollar would also mean bad news for economies around the world that have grown dependent on it.
Alright, so let's say this is going to affect everybody around the world. Alright, this is 2nd Esdras, 16th chapter, verse 14. Behold, the plagues of sin, and shall not return again until they come upon the earth. The fire is kindled, and this shall not be put out till it consume the foundations of the earth. Like an arrow which is shot of a mighty archer, return not backwards. Even so, the plagues that should be sent upon the earth should not return again. So pretty much, everything is going to continue to get worse and worse, alright? Because of all the unrighteous things that this kingdom has did, alright? Everything is beginning to fall apart, okay? And it's going to continue to fall apart because this is the Lord getting ready to correct things. Alright, this is Proverbs 29 verse 16. When the wicked are multiplied, transgressions increase, but the righteous see their fall. And we're about to see the fall of Babylon the Great, alright? Because of all the wicked deeds, how they how they took this land from Gad, Reuben, and how they ruled over all the rest of Israel, from the Latin tribes to Judah to everything. Everybody's getting ready to watch they fall, and we know that they vision for this fall is out of this fall. They hope to put their beast system into full effect, but they ain't not gonna be able to pull this off. All right, like it says in the book of Job, it ain't gonna happen. All right, this is Job, chapter 20, and verse 22. In the fullness of his sufficiency, he should be in stripes. Every hand of the wicked should come upon him. When he is about to fill his belly, Yahweh should cast the fury of his wrath upon him, and should rain it upon him while he is eating. So the Lord is going to put an end to this when they think they're about to get it all together. Alright, but it's pretty obvious that the MOTB is coming. Alright, and the dollar is getting ready to crash, and the replacement is going to be the US digital dollar. Alright, and with that, Shalom.